Welcome to the Atheist in Recovery podcast, where we talk about finding hope in recovery. And now your host, Dr. Adina Silvestri.
Hello, guys, and welcome to episode 30 of the Atheists in Recovery podcast. And today we are talking about following your intuition and trusting your gut. I think that it's a good episode for a show called Atheists in Recovery. And a lot of times when we are numbing out the pain in active addiction, we're also numbing out our wise inner voice. And so how do we cultivate an environment to get our wisdom back? I'm going to look at 5 ways or 5 truths about intuition and how to cultivate it. But first, let's talk a little bit about what intuition is. Intuition is that spidey sense. It's that ability to know something, to know that something is true without any formal logic or reasoning. We're all born with it. All of us have that innate ability. However, many of us that grew up in dysfunctional families, maybe we didn't get that approval of our feelings. You know, if every time you witness something that's chaotic or something that you think is wrong and you express it and you're told, well, that's crazy, that never happened, or it's just swept under the rug, then those feelings start to get repressed very early on and you lose that intuitive ability. And so I'm going to bring in Steve Jobs here to start us off. Steve Jobs said, "Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition." So let's look at number 1, mindfulness. We have a whole podcast coming up about mindfulness, but for right now, let's just talk about how to cultivate mindfulness in gaining greater intuition. Mindfulness is a practice of complete awareness of your thoughts, of your feelings, of your emotion. And so having a mindfulness practice can be as simple as just sitting with your thoughts and emotions for 3 minutes. And if that seems too long, then try a minute. And there's so many apps out there these days. I'll link to one of my favorites called Headspace, but there are so many, even on YouTube. There are a bunch of mindfulness apps to get you started. But for as long as I've been working with individuals in recovery, mindfulness seems to be the quickest way for us to get their inner voice back. And so I hope you try mindfulness. Okay. Number 2, take heed of your biology. So this is something also that is important. If you're not on your game, if the biology is out of whack, then you're just more susceptible to falling into those old habits and patterns and putting your recovery in jeopardy. And so if you are in any sort of recovery program, HALT should sound familiar. It stands for hungry, angry, loneliness, and tired. And lately I've been talking to a lot of individuals who found their inner introvert when they became sober, which is so interesting. Before they hated being alone. They always wanted to be with others and in a drinking environment. And they thought of themselves as extroverted. It makes sense, always wanting to be out with others in a party environment. But maybe what they wanted was to be drinking, and it didn't really matter who the people were around them. And so a lot of the people that I work with in my practice, and the people that I interview on the podcast talk about being extroverted as a way to feel safe around drinking, or to feel not alone in drinking, and then finding their inner introvert when they were sober, and how surprising that is. Just having this this new side of themselves to cultivate and to be aware of, and to let others know as well. When you're sober, it's okay to not want to go to 3 bars in a row when you're on vacation with your friends, and just telling them, I need a day. I need a day to just recharge. Can't hit the bar with you tonight, even though you'd be drinking the mocktail version or whatever you'd be drinking, but can't do it tonight. Sorry. I need to put myself first. I need to put my recovery first. And so, I just think that that's kind of interesting. Okay. That's number 2. 3, I labeled 3 ask. So when you're building on your intuition, you need to be looking at your feelings, focusing on how you feel versus how you think. So intuition is all about, that absence of logic, of using your feelings. And so this is going to be new. So ask for support, ask for a witness, maybe talk to a therapist, focus on how you're feeling, and you might be surprised at the answers. So, you're doing what feels right in a certain situation versus maybe what others think you should do, or what the logical thing would be to do. It's been doing some research for this show, and what I find is that the majority of people that have to make moral decisions do it based on intuition, which I found really interesting. Anyway, I could do a whole show on that. Okay, number 4, try journaling. I love journaling. And journaling, interestingly enough, is developing it. It's working on the right side of the brain. So you're developing your right side of your brain when you start to journal. And that's actually where your creativity is, where your spirituality resides, aka the podcast topics. And so you're strengthening that process by journaling. And you could just journal a stream of consciousness. A former guest, Liv from Liv's Recovery Kitchen, talked about how she started journaling. And so she would just journal what she did that day just to get the juices flowing. And also a fun tidbit is that, when they say trust in your gut, what does your gut tell you to do? God, I say that all the time in my practice. They talk about the gut now, and there's research to back this up, that the gut is actually the second brain. And so you have these neurons in your digestive system that actually will start to ping. And so getting more aware of what's happening literally in your gut. So I thought that was interesting. Okay, number 5, follow the flashes of intuition. So follow those little intuitive hits. Notice when you get a little intuitive flash, like maybe turning down a road you've never been on, stopping in a library as you drive by, maybe speaking to a person standing in line next to you. Try it and see where it leads. This happens to me a lot. Because this is what I do for a living. I talk about feelings. So I'm always using my intuition muscle. But this happened to me recently when I was running. And when I'm running, I come across, it could be anybody. And there was somebody standing at the top of the stairs, and it looked a little weird. He didn't look very friendly, and I was basically all by myself. And so logically, I thought, well, what's going to happen? I could outrun this guy. He doesn't look that strong. He looked a little disheveled. Logically, I was like, oh, I'll just walk up the stairs. But I stopped and I asked my gut, what is my gut telling me to do? And my gut told me to go the other way. And I never regret that. It maybe sounds silly, me and you talking, me, you, and probably 1,000 other people listening to this. It might sound silly, but you just never know. One of the best decisions of your life could be just to follow your gut. That intuitive sense. I've never regretted it. I'll tell you that. I've never regretted not following my gut. So anyway, I have a bonus for you. And I thought this was a sort of an interesting article, and it talks about what people write in their emails, and that in the study they surveyed individuals, and they talked about email addresses and punctuation. And apparently the study found that angry and happy seeming emails have many exclamation points and few question marks. Feminine seeming emails have both. And another study found that smileys in formal emails don't make the writer seem warm, but do make him or her seem incompetent. Meanwhile, adding a smiley with a nose to a dating profile will win more replies, while adding a noseless smiley will get you fewer. So just something to think about. Your future partner may come down to an emoji, guys. Just letting you know. Okay, so I think that wraps up our How to Strengthen Our Intuition podcast, and I hope you found this helpful. And I also want to encourage you to join our private Facebook group. Just go ahead and go to Atheists in Recovery and apply to the Facebook group, and I will accept your invite. Okay, thanks guys. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Atheists in Recovery podcast. For more great info and to stay up to date, head over to atheistsandrecovery.com.